Greetings all. Today we are going to talk about the worst races in World of Warcraft lore-wise. Now I'm not going to include allied races on the list because they have a lot less lore than all the other races. With that out of the way, let's get this started. Number 5, Tauren. The Tauren have a decent amount of lore, but the problem with their lore is that it's a bit of a mixed bag. The Tauren's culture is based on Native American culture, or at least white people's ideas of it. That is not to say they're a racial stereotype or anything, it's just that they're kind of unoriginal. A lot of the Tauren's culture revolves around respect for nature and worship of their main god, the Earth Mother. Another major part of their culture is that they make sure that whenever they hunt and kill an animal, they use all of its parts. These are all very generic tropes. One major problem I have with them is the Sunwalkers. You see, Tauren paladins aren't really paladins. A better term for them would be sun druids. The Tauren believe that the sun, who they know as Anshe, and the moon, who they know as Mushe, are actually eyes of the Earth Mother. Originally, they did not worship Anshe, but Pony Brightmane came along and changed that because she thought that the Tauren must maintain balance between the sun and the moon. She then formed the Sunwalkers, and thus the Tauren Paladin was born. This is the in-war reason why Tauren can be paladins, but the problem with it is that druids already have sun abilities like Sunfire or Solar Beam. It's clear that Blizzard only invented the Sunwalkers to make it so the Horde could have more races that could be paladins, because at the time of Cataclysm, when Tauren paladins were added, the only other Horde races that could be paladins were Blood Elves. They do have some interesting lore, though, like how they joined the Horde because Thrall helped them deal with the Centaurs, who had almost wiped out their entire race. Number 4, Draenei. The Draenei's lore is overall just pretty mediocre. They had no involvement in the first, second, or third war, so they don't have much lore as the other races. Another problem I have with them is that they do not fit in with WoW's vibe. I mean, they're holy goat people with spaceships in a world that's supposed to be medieval. They do have some good lore, like how the Vulcan or Draenei who've been abandoned by the light supplement this loss of power. Many have turned to shamanism, and some have spread their teachings to the Draenei. Number 3, Gnomes. I have a deep, burning hatred for these little pieces of crap. The bulk of their lore is just about how smart they are. They make amazing technology and are pretty decent with magic. Most of their culture just revolves around their curiosity or love for technology. They're not really that religious, although some of them worship the light. Overall, there's not really anything unique about them when compared to gnomes of other fantasy settings. Number 2, Worgen. Putting the Worgen on this list is kind of cheating because they were originally just humans. But then again, the Forsaken were originally just humans, and they still did a fantastic job with their lore. The form of the Worgen existed before it even reached Gilneas. The first Worgen were actually night elves who had discovered a dangerous yet extremely powerful druid form known as the Pack form. They tried to use the Cipher Valoon to make it less dangerous, but instead the Cipher Valoon just turned them into Worgen. They were eventually captured by Malfurion and put in the Emerald Dream. They were discovered by Gilneas during the Third War. You see, King Greymane closed off Gilneas from the rest of the Alliance after the Second War. Because of this, they were completely overrun by the Scourge during the Third War. An Archmage called Aurgal, desperate to save his people, decided to summon the Worgen into the city to fight off the Scourge. The Worgen tore through the Scourge, driving them back. But as soon as they were done slaughtering the Scourge, they turned on the inhabitants of Gilneas. The Worgen curse spread throughout Gilneas. As for Aurgal, he sided with the Worgen, was killed, and then some of his followers and him were raised as undead by the Scourge, which is why we have Worgen Death Knights. Eventually, they found out a way to cure the sanity of those who had become Worgen, and eventually learned to make it so they could even revert back to their human forms. The problem with Worgen, though, is that most of their lore is just a single human kingdom, that kingdom being Gilneas. While their lore is not too bad, even if the Worgen are just werewolves but with different names, there's just not too much of it. Number 1, Goblins. Now, I have always hated these little bastards. Most of their lore just revolves around how greedy they are. Throughout each of the 3 wars, they just served as mercenaries. They very rarely join a side out of moral obligations. They almost always just do it for gold. The main leader of the playable goblins is Grey Prince scallywags, even enslaved his own people for profit. Another problem I have with them is that they can use the light. Now, the in-law reason for this is that they use their greed as a motivator for using the light. But the problem with this is that the whole thing of the light is you have to believe what you're doing is right. There are so many other reasons to despise these robots. I do not know why Blizzard added them to the Horde. I would have just preferred them remaining as basic mercenaries willing to help whatever faction gave them the most gold. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video. I hope you have a nice day.